What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Griever back here, as always, bringing you guys a new anime episode review. And what anime is it? It can be none other than Dr. Stone. Now, I gotta say, right off the bat, this episode, this is what Dr. Stone is all about, ladies and gentlemen. This gets you right in the feels, gets you right there. I love the placement they did in this episode. Once again, OVA style. Like, they do not skip panels, and they add a little bit of context and a couple more scenes just to fill out some scenes, like the Senku kitchen thing, and Robot Senku showing up to say, hey kids, do not actually do this because you'll blow yourself up, you know? Stuff like that. That's all fine and dandy, and actually I found it comical and I enjoyed it. I especially like the Senku kitchen sort of aspect, but the big thing for me was they used chapter 10 or chapter 11. I'm unsure necessarily of the actual chapter number, but they used that. The backstory with Senku as a child, you know, going through his whole science thing, wanting to go to space, meeting Taiju, building the rocket together, and blah, 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 and that whole thing. They put it all in this episode while he's confronting Tsukasa. And, guys, it was done so well. Like, don't get me wrong, the manga does it good. But the anime had time, after reading the whole story, they have time to perfect it and watch it through and go, you know what? If we move A to B and B to C and D to A, we'll have something even better than when we first created it. And that is what this anime has done. And I'm on board. This was the best episode so far. Episode 4 of Dr. Stone was the best episode. Because it did it so well. Like, okay, so for those of you who haven't read the manga, and I don't know why you would have not, you know, so to speak, but there are anime-only viewers. So, going through this episode, we see, okay, so they found sulfur, right? They found sulfur, and the beginning of the episode, I believe, starts off with Yuzuha, whatever, Taiju's girl, and Taiju talking in the hot springs sort of idea, and Taiju basically says, like, I'll wait until we restore humanity, until we finish our mission, our goal, to say what I wanted to say 3,700 years ago, and she already knows. They both know sort of idea, but they're like, yeah, we'll wait to start our romance until that day comes sort of idea. This is where a signal fire is lit in the distance, and they realize that's not the direction of Tsukasa, that's a totally separate direction. There are other people in this stone world, and they're like, bam, so what do we do? And Senku makes the decision, because Taiju and Yuzuha, they both look to Senku for all the decision making, which is smart because he's the smart one. And he even says, like, my gut is leading me, which is the most illogical thing I could think of. But in this case, yes, light the fire, we'll do this, blah, blah, blah. Of course, Senku will always have a plan. He has plans on top of plans. If you want to compare him to anybody, compare him to Kisuke Urahara from Bleach. He's got 1,000 plans for every situation stacked on top of each other. And as he freely admits, you can almost ixnay 500 of them off the bat. But at least the plan is in place. That's what makes him smart. So this episode simply goes on, and Tsukasa is basically tracking them down. They're trying to build gunpowder, of course. They build gunpowder. They actually succeed in building gunpowder using the sulfur and the wood and the whole idea. And they do a comical thing where Taiju makes a spark and goes kaboom with a rock, and they go flying and stuff. It's comical. It's funny and it's fun. And this is where Robot Senku comes out and says, please, kids, like after the Senku kitchen aspect, which is like, here's how we make gunpowder. And they're like, please, kids, don't actually do this at home because you will blow yourself up, blah, blah, blah. And I kind of enjoyed the Senku robot. I thought that was kind of cool. But after that, we simply get them going forward with this. Tsukasa ends up catching up with them, takes Yuzuha hostage, meets up with Senku, and he's like, I'll kill her, I'm sorry, sort of idea, but this is what has to be done. Gunpowder, blah, blah, blah. They have a bit of a back and forth, where Senku tries to play the tough guy, and says like, well, she doesn't really much to me, sort of idea, and that's when Tsukasa like cuts her, but doesn't really cut her, like cuts her hair off and stuff, and goes, no, see, you have no cards to play, because you're a smart guy. I'm a smart guy, but I know that you're smarter than me. Had you wanted to save this woman from me, you would have buried her underground and not saved her from petrification. You would have buried her in a marked spot that nobody would have known. You could have come back later. You didn't do that because you have people that are precious to you. Is it for Taiju? Is it for Yuzuha? Is it for both of them? Doesn't matter. Point is, you have these people. These people are more than logic to you. You're a logical man. You have precious friends. And these are those two friends. That's where we jump into the whole backstory from, and this is where the movement from the manga goes. The manga brings us this story a little later, not too much later, but a little later, but it inserts it during this conversation where Senku thinks about it. He thinks about his whole backstory, where he got into science, where he wanted to go to space, where he met Taiju, met Yuzuha. They were trying to build rockets. They all failed, all these experiments, how they grew and got bigger and bigger. We see his father. He sells his car to buy all this crazy science equipment for Senku and stuff like that. It's a really nice moment, and we see all this backstory, right? And this was really getting in the feels, and it was good, but that's not the feels part, because after all this, Tsukasa continues and says basically like, you have these precious people to you, but me, I don't. And just so we're clear, Taiju is, we cut back and forth and we see Taiju. He's collecting wood and stuff to make more gunpowder. But at the end of the day, he starts rushing towards because he realizes like Yuzuha Senku, like Tsukasa might be there and he's rushing towards, but he's not part of the scene. So during this exchange, Yuzuha like brings the knife that Tsukasa brought to her neck and stuff, and because Tsukasa is only here for the revival formula, right? And she says, like, Senku, don't give it to him, blah, blah, blah. And then Senku, of course, brings it up. And I should have mentioned this before, but that's what leads him to revealing the formula. And that's why Tsukasa says, well, now I have no reason to keep any of you alive. I can kill you, blah, blah, blah. And it's all because, and that's where they get on the whole, these are your precious friends. These are your precious people that are important in your life. This is where the feels come. Because after all of this happens, right? Senku is well-rounded. Tsukasa brings up the fact, and he just says, I have admirers. I have people that respect me, but I don't have anybody that I would call precious. I don't have a Taiju-kun or a Yuzihara-kun. I don't have any of those. I don't have people like that in my life. But he goes on this speech, and I'm not going to try to say it verbatim, but it's really great. Dr. Stone, this episode was so good. Everyone should like Dr. Stone. It's so much better than most of the running Jump series. Barring One Piece, it's probably the best one. And right here, like this whole thing, because you empathize. Once again, since day one, did anybody actually believe Tsukasa is a true villain? He's trying something. He's not out there for evil intentions. He's not murdering people for the sake of some sick, twisted game. He's not Jigsaw from the Saw series. He's trying to bring about a better world, you know, and you can understand his reasoning. It's sound. Senku's reasoning is also sound. So hard to argue with either one of them. And this is brought to a head right here so early on in episode 4, where Tsukasa basically says, you know, at the end of the day, I had admirers, people that respected me, but no one to call precious. But 3,700 years ago, had you and I met, and in the manga we get flashbacks. Here, we've already had the flashbacks, and it's done with great music, great overtones. Once again, the soundtrack, the opening ending, fuck them, but the soundtrack for this series is on point. It just says, you probably would have been my very first friend. Because Tsukasa never had a friend in his life. But he believes that Senku could have been his friend. And in the anime, it says maybe. In the manga, probably. But that might be a translation thing. But he's like, yeah. Had we met, it's one of those old age things. Another time, another place. Yeah. I think we could have been friends. And that is, these are two guys who completely, this is the epitome of respect. Multiple times during this exchange, and this is why I haven't brought this up to now, Tsukasa repeatedly asks Senku to abandon science. Because if he can swear to do that, Tsukasa won't have to kill him. Tsukasa's sitting there pleading with him from a position of power, but he might as well be on his hands and knees going, Senku, please, don't do this. I don't want to kill you. And he says as much right before, at the end of the episode. I mean, he goes for it, but he does not want to kill Senku. To him, he's his one only potential friend he's ever had. And right now, I think in a way, they both view themselves still as friends, even at this juncture. Even at this junction of meeting and butting heads, he's his only friend. Tsukasa has no desire to kill Senku, and he's trying to find every logical way out of killing him. But for the sake of his kingdom, for the sake of what he wants to achieve, Senku has to die. So he pleads with him, tries to make him change his ways, blah blah, and just tells him outright, I would really like not to have to kill you. But at the end of the day, Senku doesn't bow down, and that is what Tsukasa kind of admires in him. Once again, the levels of respect between these two characters in 4 episodes, ladies and gentlemen. 4 episodes. It took Goku and Vegeta about 300 odd episodes to have the full level of Saiyan pride and respect for each other. It took these dudes 4 episodes. 4 episodes before they're like, yeah, we know we're always going to be at odds, but I respect you, and I respect your position. It's like, yeah, dude, same to you. Same to you. So, he explains how he's going to kill him really fast and quick. It's not going to be painful. It would be a dishonor. Tsukasa has some honor in that. And that's where you kind of, once again, feel for Tsukasa in that instance. And then he goes for it. We hear the attack. And cut to black, end of the episode. So, I mean, anybody who's not, I guess, brain dead knows that this is a shonen manga. So Senku, of course, is not dead. But the implication of what happens in this exchange could be 1,000 different things, right? So just because your main character may or may not be dead doesn't imply a total change in tone, in character-driven plot, in who we're going to follow. I mean, just look at series like My Hero Academia, which followed Deku for almost 200 chapters, and then ever since they forgot about Deku and Bakugo, they started following Endeavor Hawks and the villains, the League of Villains, and it's been nothing but gold. It's probably the best part of My Hero Academia is right now. And it's not actually following the main character. So, little food for thought right there. No spoilers for the manga series, once again, but I'm just laying down some possibilities right here. Is that, of course, Dr. Stone, Senku is, of course, the main character, and there are some things to, you have to take some liberty with, of course. But it's still intriguing. And the whole episode leading up to that moment was still really heartfelt. And I really like Tsukasa. I really like Senku. These two characters who totally respect each other on an honest level, 110%, right off the bat. Knowing that they're on opposite sides of the fence. We don't need 50 episodes of build-up for the level of respect. They already get it. They already respect each other. They already go, you're here, I'm here, here's the fence. We're both top tier in our divisions, in our field. But we're not going to see eye to eye. We want to see eye to eye. We want to work together. We don't want to actually hurt each other. But for the sake of our beliefs, for the sake of our goals, we have to do it. And that's heartfelt. That's what Dr. Stone is bringing to me a little bit. It's got the feels, ladies and gentlemen. It's got the feels right here. So, that being said, I didn't notice many changes from the manga. As I said, they changed the placement of chapter 10 or 11 with the flashback of Senku. It was basically a chapter all about the flashback, about his childhood. They put that in between the conversation. That wasn't done in the manga, but suffice it to say, it was basically panel by panel for the most part, with what happened. Placement a little off, a little bit of exaggeration with the Senku kitchen, the Senku robot sort of idea, but suffice it to say, pretty much the same idea. So, really good episode. I can't say anything bad. I'd give it a 10 out of 10 if I could. It's a fantastic episode, fantastic series so far. Once again, the animation is good. They don't use a whole lot of actually animation, shall I say. They use a lot of still shots drawn well to exaggerate things, which we've seen a lot with current anime. So you can't say the animation is so fantastic, but when it's animated, it's done well, and the drawing is good, and everything else. So what do you guys think of the episode? What do you think of the review? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please like, subscribe, comment. As always, it's always very much appreciated. This has been Griever with your episode 4, Dr. Stone episode, anime only, of Dr. Stone, of course. So, now I can triple repeat myself, or I could just end it out in saying, ladies and gentlemen, like, subscribe, comment, drink responsibly. See you back here next time.